You are watching New York Knicks Now by Chat Sports. I am your host, Marshall Green. In today's show, we're going to go over 5 players that I think the New York Knicks could trade for. We know the New York Knicks have been building to this moment of trying to trade for a star in the NBA. And there's a couple of reasons why I believe that the Knicks are not done making moves this offseason. First, it comes from Fred Katz of The Athletic. He said that the Knicks have been calling and taking calls from rival teams, gauging the trade interest of prime-aged veterans. So in today's show, we're going to talk about 5 prime-aged veterans that I think the Knicks could be in the look of trying to make a trade for. But first off, a Jalen Brunson kind of update here. This comes from Ian Begley. He went on to say, it's worth noting that Jalen Brunson has 2 guaranteed seasons remaining on his contract. So the Knicks have a short window to work with if they want to acquire a big salary while Brunson is on his current deal where he is being paid on an absolute steal. He said, if the Knicks wait until Brunson re-signs in 2025, acquiring a star could be more challenging given the onerous spending rules in the new CBA. As of earlier this week, the Knicks were said to be steadfast in holding to their price point for any of the top players available via trade, including Damian Lillard. So that tells me that the Knicks have at least talked to the Portland Trail Blazers about trading for Damian Lillard. That tells me that the Knicks have a trade package that they are willing to move for a star in the NBA. Ian Begley is the best Knicks beat reporter in the game. If he says it, I am going to believe it. So in a second, we're going to give you 5 guys that I think the Knicks could trade for in this offseason. But first, make sure you guys are subscribed to the channel. Don't miss out on any Knicks news or any rumors. This is your one-stop shop for Knicks content all summer long. We put out multiple videos every single day. So if that's what you're looking for on YouTube, subscribe to the channel right now. Let's start with a guy that the Knicks have been interested since really dating back to last offseason, and it really started to heat up at the NBA trade deadline. That is OG Anunoby, the two-way wing, one of the best defenders in the NBA for the Toronto Raptors. Zach Braziller of the New York Post went on the Let's Talk Knicks podcast. Shout out to Charlotte and all of the crew over there. They're a great Twitter follow. Their podcast is awesome. Zach said this on the LTK podcast, quote, as we all know, CAA and the Knicks are basically locked at the hip. So I think OG Anunoby is obviously a name to watch. I think he would fit perfectly here. He's a big wing. He's a really good defender, good three-point shooter. Now the question is, what is it going to take to make that happen? Is Toronto going to be looking to move him? There was also reports from Jake Fisher of Yahoo Sports that said OG Anunoby has told the front office of Toronto that he wants a bigger role. Thing is, I don't know if there's a bigger role for him in Toronto, so maybe that was the first step of kind of requesting a trade. OG Anunoby was repped by Clutch Sports in Rich Paul. He left Clutch Sports. Now he is repped by the CAA Mafia, better known as Leon Rose and the crew of the New York Knicks. When you talk about the player, though, that OG is, when you look at what he did in the 2022 season, he averaged 17 points per game, 5 rebounds, led the NBA in steals per night at 1.9. He had a field goal percentage of 47.6, and he was able to knock down the 3 at a 38.7% clip. He's a good defender, and he's a good spot-up shooter. What I love about him is his catch-and-shoot ability. He knocked down that catch-and-shoot 3 this past year at 40.6%, which is an elite number in the NBA. A spot he does struggle is attacking the rim. He turns the ball over a little bit too much when he's getting to the cup, and he shoots less than 58% on field goal attempts, less than 10 feet. So he's not a guy that's going to create for himself off the bounce. He's not going to ISO anyone, take him to the cup. He almost plays more so like a small ball 4. But when he is posted up in either the left corner or the right corner, the dude is deadly. From the left corner, the three-point shot, he shoots it at a 46.7% clip. And from the right corner, he shoots it at a 42.9% clip. But he's so much more than just that. We already told you he was number 1 in the NBA in steals per night. He was 3rd in the NBA this season in deflections. And I think that stat has a little bit more juice than steals sometimes. He just creates havoc and mayhem on the defensive end, has a 7-foot-plus wingspan at 6'8". He can start at your small forward spot, and he can be your backup power forward when Julius Randle comes out of the game. Knicks have been keeping their eyes on Anunoby for quite some time. Would not be shocked if he is the guy that they pull the trigger on. Sounds like back at the NBA trade deadline, they offered Evan Fournier and 3 protected first-round picks for Anunoby. They did not say yes. I will say this. Masai Ujiri, the head decision maker for the Raptors, he's like Danny Ainge of the Eastern Conference. He is not fun to negotiate with, and he doesn't do deals unless he wins the negotiation. So that could be a sticking point for Anunoby to the Knicks. I know a lot of people have already blown off the idea of the New York Knicks trading for Zach LaVine. I am not willing to do so at this point. Everyone harps on the one report that came out that said Zach LaVine's camp did not want him to play for the Knicks, which means Clutch Sports did not want him to play for the Knicks. There was never a report that said Zach LaVine did not want to play for the Knicks. It was Rich Paul and Clutch Sports. But rumors are coming out that Clutch Sports may be coming to an end in a couple of years as they are going to be in pursuit, Rich Paul and LeBron, of buying an NBA team in a couple of years after he retires. Casey Johnson, a very tapped-in beat reporter for the Chicago Bulls, said LaVine's name has landed in preliminary trade conversations. Teams that have been mentioned by him were the Portland Trail Blazers and the Philadelphia 76ers, which tells me that the Bulls are seriously considering trading LaVine, who is one of the best offensive players in the National Basketball Association, has not averaged less than 24.4 points per game in the last 4 seasons, has not shot less than 37.5% from downtown, and he has not shot less than 45% from the field overall. People make a lot of excuses as to why LaVine is not a primetime player. They say he's injury prone. That's not true. He's played more than 85% of games in the last 5 seasons. People bring up the fact that he hasn't played in a lot of playoff games. That's fair, but I'm not putting that on Zach LaVine. That just shows me he's not a number one option that can carry a team to the playoffs by himself. And that's okay. We don't need him to be a number one option. We got Jalen Brunson. You know what I need? A shooting guard that knocks down catch and shoot threes at 42%. A guy that can create his own shot from the perimeter like Zach LaVine does. And when he attacks the basket, he is one of the best finishers in the NBA at 62.7%. Another problem that people bring up with LaVine is that his contract is too high. And I can get behind that a little bit. This past year made $37 million. Going to go to 40, 43, 46, and 49. But at the end of the day, the salary cap is going to continue to get higher. And this is kind of just what it costs to sign a star. Think about it like this. Jeremy Grant signed, a 4-year, $160 million deal? Zach LaVine's better than that. So I wouldn't freak out about the money with Zach LaVine. This is just what the price of doing business is when you're dealing with a star in the NBA, which Zach LaVine absolutely is. I know the Knicks declined a trade offer for Paul George, but I am not ready to close the book on a Paul George trade from the Los Angeles Clippers. The first report that came out was that the Knicks were going to offer or got asked to trade R.J. Barrett, Quentin Grimes, Evan Fournier, and 3 first-round picks. But that was not the first trade offer that the Knicks talked about with the Clippers. Michael Scotto of Hoops Hype said this, quote, "The Knicks and Clippers originally had trade talks surrounding Paul George at the NBA draft. At the time, New York was considering a package featuring Obi Toppin, Quentin Grimes, and Evan Fournier, as well as 3 first-round picks in exchange for George. After that, R.J. Barrett's name was brought up briefly in trade talks by the Clippers in place of Toppin, league sources told Hoops Hype. However, the asking price of parting with Barrett, Grimes, 3 first-round picks, and them having to negotiate a long-term extension for George, who's 33 years old, was too high for the New York Knicks. I'm not closing the books on a Paul George trade. I think it's pretty obvious at this point where we are at the NBA offseason that the Los Angeles Clippers would like to deal Paul George. The contract, he's due for a contract extension. He's under books for 2 more years. He's going to want some long-term security. I'm not closing the books on this. And the reason is because like Ian Begley said yesterday on the putback, there are people in the Knicks front office that believe Paul George is the perfect on-court fit for the New York Knicks, and I 100% agree. A 6'9" wing, a two-way player, can create for himself and others on offense while being an elite catch-and-shoot player and someone that shoots 37% from downtown while also having the ability to score 20 points per game any single night and also being a facilitator while also being a lockdown defender on the defensive end. It's the injury, age, and contract that is a little bit concerning. But when you're strictly talking hoops, when you're strictly talking ball, I don't think there's a better small forward available on the trade market that would fit into what the New York Knicks do. So if you had to choose between Zach LaVine and Paul George, who would you rather see the Knicks trade for? Type ZL for LaVine or PG for playoff P. I know this may be a guy that some people have some strong feelings about, that he's not elite, that he's not that guy. Tobias Harris is a solid player. He's someone at 6'9" that can play the three. He could be your backup four to Julius Randle. And probably the most important reason and why I'm bringing it up in today's show, Tom Thibodeau loves Tobias Harris. He loves him. He said this back in December of 2022. He said, I think you look at that team, and obviously Embiid and Harden are probably established, but I always thought Tobias Harris was one of the most underrated players in the league. And I also do think Tobias Harris is a little bit underrated. I think he gets a lot of unfair heat and criticism from Sixers fans just because he doesn't live up to the hype of that contract. He's on an expiring $39 million deal, so that's something to be weary of if you are the Knicks trading for him. But you're getting a guy that last year averaged 15.6 rebounds, 50% from the field, and 39% from three. And that was in a Doc Rivers offense where he just had Tobias Harris standing in that corner. I mean, you look at what he did in the 3 prior years. The guy averaged 18.5 points per game and pretty much shot 38% from three. You can never have too many guys that shoot 38% from three, and he's also 6'9". And I know a lot of Knicks fans want a tall, long, lanky wing, and he's a good defender. He picks up the best offensive player every single night for the Sixers on the opposing roster. I would not hate bringing the New York native Tobias Harris back home to wear New York across his chest. The last player we're going to talk about in today's video is Pascal Siakam. As reports are coming out that the Toronto Raptors could be exploring the idea of moving on from Siakam, Michael Grange, who is a beat reporter for Toronto, pretty much said it might be time for them to move on. Siakam is a really good player, no doubt about it. And you can make the argument he was the second best player on that Toronto Raptors team that won an NBA championship with Kawhi Leonard as their best player. And his stats continue to get better and better every single season. This past year, 24.2 points per game, 8 rebounds, 6 assists, 48%. The only thing that I would say with Siakam is he's not a small forward. He's a power forward. So if the Knicks were trading for Siakam, I think Randle will be the guy going out. And I wouldn't mind trading Julius Randle. I personally think, though, that Randle is a better player than Pascal Siakam. So maybe it's a Randle and Barrett swap for Siakam and OG. I wouldn't hate that, but I would not trade straight up Randle for Siakam at this point. Who do the Knicks need to trade for, though? We've talked about 5 players on today's show. We also brought you the report that the Knicks have checked in with Damian Lillard. We know that they've checked in with James Harden. There's a lot of people. Karl Anthony Towns, I think that trade is dead. I think they would have already made that move if it was one they wanted to make. So I'm not thinking that he is the guy the Knicks want to trade for. Who do you think, though? Who do the Knicks need to trade for this NBA offseason to capitalize on that window where Jalen Brunson is the most underpaid player in the NBA? Give me their name in the comment section right now. As always, I just want to say thank you, and I appreciate you guys for rocking and rolling with us here on New York Knicks Now by Chat Sports. If we missed anything or you want to continue the conversation over on Twitter, hit me up at @MarshallGreen_, and we'll see you later.